things from on the behalf of Modak Trainer Academy to all of our August participants. Today's topic, the nature of human being, East and West. And today's speaker, who needs no introduction, Dr. Jaishankar Lal Shah. He himself a man of philosophy, whose specialization is on neo-philosophy, neo-tradition, under the able guidance of Pandit Vishwabandhu, Pandit Mashai. But he himself excelled his different fields so nicely that if we want to start and give the description, then it will be difficult for us to understand. But one thing I must mention today, that he is the recipient of prescript innumerable time, who has authored more than 14 books. One most important book at this moment, I feel, the collected writings of Professor Jaishankar Lal Shah, Indian Analytic and Anglophone Philosophy. Besides this, apart from this, his
voice is not audible.
Please reconnect yourself, because voice is right.
Besides this, the whole of his life he is working on comparative study, that is Western philosophy and Indian philosophy. So today, and one more thing, that he has taught in Wellington University, but previously in Jadavpur University, in Alabama University, in Hawaii University. So that across the globe, he has that one thing I just want to tell, that everything in his grip. So I will request Professor Shah. Moreover, we are really thankful to him. On behalf of Academy, we are just express our gratitude to give us time whenever we request him. His time is valuable to all of us, and living legend at this moment in philosophical field, in this tradition. So I will request Professor Shah. Sir, please start
Madam,
your presentation.
presenting first.
And sorry, just a moment. We will start our program with Vedic chanting. So I will request Pritili to start her chanting.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good morning.
Pritili, not good evening. Good evening for some people and good morning. Okay?
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay. তো আজকে আমি বেদিক চ্যান্টিং করব রুদ্র মন্ত্র। ওম রুদ্রায় ওম নমস্তে রুদ্রমন্যগ উতোতৈষবে নমঃ নমস্তে অস্তু ধন্মনে বাহুভ্যামুদতে নমঃ या तैषु शिवतमा शिवं बभूवते धनुः शिवाशरव्याया तव तया नो रुद्रमृडया या रुद्र शिवा तनूरघोरा पापकाशिनी तनुवासन्तमया गिरिशन्ताभिचारिः यामिषुङ्गिरिशन्तहस्ते बिभर्षस्तवे शिवाङ्गिरिकृताङ्कुरुमाहुंसि संयमत शिवेन वचसा त्वादिशाच्छा वदामसि यथा नः सर्वमिज्जगदलक्ष्मगुं सुमना सदा अध्यवोचदधिवक्ता प्रथमोऽभ्यो विशका अहीगुश्च सर्वान् जम्भयत् सर्वांश्च यातु धान्यः असूयस्ताम्रो अरुण उत बभ्रुः सुमङ्गलः ये चेमागुं रुद्रा अवितो दिक्षु श्रिता सहस्रशो वैशागुं मेरयीमहे असूयो बसर्पति नीलग्रीवो लोहितः उदैनं गोपा अदृशन्नदृशन्नुदहार्यः उतैनौ विश्वा भूतानि च दृष्टो मृळयातिनः नमो अस्तु नीलग्रीवाय सहस्राक्षाय मेढुषे अथो ये अस्य सत्त्वा नो हन्तेभ्यो करन्नमः प्रमुञ्च धन्वनस्त्वमुभयोडाग्नियोर्ज्याम् यार्स्यते हस्त इषवः पराता भगवो बपा अवदत्त धनुस्त्वगुं सहस्राक्षशते शुधे निशीर्षल्यानां मुख शिवो न सुमना भव विज्जन्धनुक्कपर्दिनो विशल्यो वानवागुं मुदा अनेशन्नस्येषव आभुरस्य निषङ्गतिः याते हेतिर्मयिषुष्टमहस्ते बभूव ते धनुः तयास्मान् विश्वतस्मयक्ष्मया परिभुजा नमस्ते अस्त्वायुधाय नादिताय धृष्णवे उभाभ्यामुदते नमो बाहुभ्यां तव धन्वने परिते धन्वनो हेतिरस्मान् वृणक्तु विश्वतः अथो य इषुधिस्तवारे अस्मन्निधेहितं नमस्ते अस्तु भगवान् विश्वेश्वराय महादेवाय त्र्यम्बकाय त्रिपुरान्तकाय त्रिकाग्निकालाय
বলো বলো এখানে আমি ব্যস্ত আছি।
सदाशिवाय श्रीमन्महादेवाय नमः नमो हिरण्यवाहवे सेनान्ये दिशां च पतये नमो नमो वृक्षेभ्यो हरिकेशेभ्यः पशूनां पतये नमो नमः सस्पिञ्जराय त्रिशीमते पथीनां पतये नमो नमो बभ्रुषाय विव्याधिने नानां पतये नमो नमो हरिकेशाय उपवीदिने पुष्टानां पतये नमो नमो भवस्य हेत्यैर्जगतां पतये नमो नमः सूताय हन्तया वनानां पतये नमो नमो रोहिताय स्थपतये वृक्षाणां पतये नमो नमो मन्त्रिणे वाणिजाय भक्षणां पतये नमो नमो भुवन्तये वाडिवस्कृताय औषधीनां पतये नमो नमः चैर्घोषाय क्रन्दयते पथीनां पतये नमो नमः कृष्णवीताय धावते सत्वनं पतये नमः। Thank you.
Thank you, Pratili. Thank you. With this very chanting, today we are going to start our program. And now I will request Professor Shaw to start his presentation. Sir, please. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Is it all right now? Can you
Yes,
hear me?
yes, perfectly. Yes.
Okay, good. First of all, I would like to convey my heartfelt thanks to Modak Academy, especially Ganesh Modak, who has set up this academy, and Dr. Gargi De, as well as Ritu Parna Ghosh and Modak's daughter, Pritila. They have done a great job, unthinkable job. Priti Lee Modak. And I cannot believe how she can remember Vedic chanting. And not only so, in the past, she has recited Bhagavad Gita also. So infinite thanks to all of you for organizing this talk. You are carrying the banner of our culture. And today's topic is the nature of human beings, East and West. It is a big topic, and I will start with some of the features of Western philosophy. I have categorized Western philosophy into 4 parts, and beginning with Plato and onwards up to existentialism. And then I have introduced Indian philosophy, Indian culture, Indian thought, that the nature of human beings can be described in so many different ways. As many as 6 ways you can describe the nature of human beings. So instead of defining, what I did, I have focused on the nature of human beings, or you can say the as I see human beings. And it has been substantiated by my gurus. I have talked to them. If there is any merit in my talk, it is to be attributed to my gurus. But for all the shortcomings, I am to be held responsible. And I have to mention 2 of my gurus. One is Pandit Vishwabandhu Tarkatirtha, who passed away nearly 17 years ago, and he was the last surviving scholar of Nobbonaya tradition in Bengal, and Pandit Dinesh Chandra Shastri, who passed away nearly 25 years ago, and he was a great Vedantin and Nyaya Mimamsa scholar. So, the aim is to discuss the nature of human beings from the perspective of both Eastern and Western. So, my first part deals with the Western concepts of human being. And I have categorized, as I mentioned, into 4. Rationality as the defining property of human beings. 1. Second one, certain attitudes or experiences such as caring, loving, etc. as the defining properties of human beings. Then Western theological concepts of human beings. I have included both Christian and Jewish tradition. Then the existentialist concept of human beings. And there are so many existentialist philosophers. I have categorized their views into 5 categories. Then the second part of my talk deals with the concept of human beings from Indian perspective. And I have focused on the concept of ought and ought not. Somehow we do have the concept of ought and ought not. Then free will, presupposed by the concept of ought. Then the concept of infinity, or human beings can participate both in finite and infinite concepts. Then creativity, as well as suggestive meaning. I have developed suggestive meanings as 6 layers of meanings in my philosophy of language, especially meanings of sentences. So suggestive meaning is another dimension of human beings. Then creativity, then realization of rasas. Rasa cannot be identified with any emotion. Especially, I am grateful to Pandit Dinesh Chandra Shastri for pointing out this. Then the concept of liberation or moksha or nirvana or freedom from bondage. Now, regarding Western philosophy, we start with Plato, who has also emphasized rationality. So I am defining his conception of rationality. X has rationality if and only if X can apprehend universals which are eternal, non-spatial, and non-temporal. According to him, human beings can apprehend these universals and the system of eternal entities which are called ideas, sometimes concepts, and at at the apex of this hierarchy is the concept of good in Plato. This type of philosophy or this type of rationality we come across in Plato. And he has divided human soul into three parts. The highest part of the soul is reason. Reason, being a faculty of mind or soul, apprehends Platonic ideas and relationships between these ideas. The other two parts are irrational, called noble and ignoble, respectively. It is claimed that emotions such as love, courage belong to the irrational, noble part of the soul. But sensuous appetites belong to the ignoble part of the irrational soul. So rational, irrational. And then irrational is divided into noble and ignoble. The noble part can be treated as instinct, not reason. Plants possess only the ignoble or the appetitive part of the soul, but animals possess both the noble and the ignoble part of the soul. Human beings alone possess all the three parts of the soul. Hence, human beings are to be distinguished from other beings in terms of reason, which is the immortal part of the soul. Since the rational part is the faculty of knowledge, human beings alone can have knowledge. Hence, the knowledge of ideas such as redness, blueness, and ethical ideas such as justice, beauty, goodness, and so on are due to rational part of the soul. Moreover, it is the rational part of the soul which transmigrates and recollects the ideas, as this part of the soul lived in the realm of ideas, or what is called Plato's heaven. Then, second conception of reason I come across in Aristotle. Virtually, there are two concepts of reason in Aristotle. One is theoretical, another is practical. Regarding theoretical reason, X has rationality if and only if X is able to use deductive, inductive, or abductive arguments. Regarding deduction and induction, there is difference of opinion between Aristotle and modern logicians. Aristotle emphasized generality. Deduction is a valid inference such that the premises are more general than the conclusion. In the case of induction, we proceed from a set of particular premises to a general conclusion. But these definitions are not acceptable, as in a valid deductive inference, both the premises and the conclusion may be particular. For example, A is taller than B, therefore B is shorter than A. Similarly, in an inductive inference, both the premises and the conclusion may be particulars. So modern logicians do not define deduction or induction in terms of generality. According to them, according to modern logicians, in a valid deductive inference, the conclusion is necessarily, or conclusion necessarily follows from the premises. Premise or the premises. But in an inductive inference, this does not happen. In other words, in a deductive inference, the premises are true, then the conclusion cannot be false. But in an inductive inference, the conclusion may be false or probable, although the premises are true. Therefore, in a valid deductive argument, the conclusion cannot be denied without denying the premises or the premise or the premises. But in an inductive argument, the conclusion may be denied without denying the premise or the premises. For example, swans in New Zealand are white, swans in Asian countries are white, therefore all swans are white. The premises are true, but the conclusion is false, as black swans have been discovered in Australia. Now, regarding abduction, some philosophers, such as C.S. Peirce, treated it as the third type of inference. So there is a dispute whether it can be treated as a third type of inference. But Peirce has treated it as a third type of inference. This type of inference corresponds to the postulation of a scientific hypothesis to explain some given phenomena. This is what scientists do. They postulate some hypothesis to give an account of our phenomena or our experiences about phenomena. In order to explain these facts, the hypothesis is postulated. Hence, the hypothesis is treated as probable, highly probable, although falsifiable. So scientific criteria is falsifiability. In this context, it is to be noted that Aristotle has used it to refer to a syllogistic inference, such that the conclusion is merely probable, although the major premise is certain and the minor premise is merely probable. So there is a dispute regarding the nature of Aristotelian conception of abduction. So this, for historical discussion, this is a topic for further discussion. Then the third one, X is rational if and only if the reasoning of X leads to an action. That is, I found in Aristotle. It is called practical reason. To quote Aristotle, I need covering. A cloak is a covering. I need a cloak. What I need, I have to make. I need a cloak. I have to make a cloak. And the conclusion that I have to make a clock is an action. And he acts from the starting point. If there is to be a clock, there must necessarily be this first, and if this, then this. And this he does at once. That means it leads you to action. Either you have to buy a clock, which is a covering, like our overcoat, or you have to make it. It is claimed that according to Aristotle, we must act in order to realize our reason, which is the intrinsic good of a human being. Hence, the good of a human being lies in performing actions which exhibit reason. The nature of life of a human being is determined by the function of reason, as the human good lies in reason. Since Aristotle's ethics is treated as virtue ethics, the good of an agent lies in having virtuous characters or dispositions. If a person is virtuous, then he or she chooses the right object or acts in the right ways at the right time and place for the right reasons. Wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance are considered virtues by Aristotle. Since human good is a function of reason, the decisions justified by reason are considered as good. From the above discussion, it follows that a function of practical reason in Aristotle is to correlate means with ends. There are certain ends which are justified by reason, and then you have to correlate certain means for achieving those ends. So, this is, I found, in Aristotle also. So, theoretical reason and practical reason. Then we move to Kant. And we do not have so many famous philosophers in Western philosophy as we have in the context of Indian philosophy. There are so many systems and so many subsystems, sub-subsystems, and so many great philosophers. But if I have to mention three great philosophers, definitely Plato, Aristotle, and Kant. And if I have to mention four, then obviously Hegel. And in contemporary philosophy, we have Bertrand Russell, as well as Wittgenstein, and some existentialist philosophers. Now, in Kant, how to define rationality? X is rational if and only if X can apprehend certain categories or generic universals, such as unity, plurality, totality, existence, possibility, necessity, or intuit moral principles. So, in Kant, it has taken a different form. We come across this type of rationality, theoretical or practical, in the philosophy of Kant. According to him, certain categories are forms or principles of synthesis and are necessary for knowledge. Knowledge involves construction. These categories are the principles for construction or principles for synthesis. Kant deduces his categories from the faculty of judgment or thought as the unit of thought is judgment. So regarding unit of thought, there is a difference between Kant and Hegel. Kant thinks it is the judgment which is the unit of thought, but in Hegel it is the inference which is the unit of thought. And Kant has accepted 12 categories corresponding to 12 types of judgment. There are 3 types of judgments of quantity, namely singular, this is P, this S is P, particular, some S is P, and universal, all S is P. So, the categories corresponding to these judgments are unity, plurality, and totality. So, these concepts or generic concepts are not derived from experience, but they are contributions of understanding in Kant. So, similarly, there are other categories. In Kant, judgments are divided into several types. The categories corresponding to these, the types called, the categories corresponding to them are inherent subsistence, ground consequence, according to relation. Judgments are divided into categorical, hypothetical, and disjunctive. And there are corresponding categories called inherent subsistence, ground consequence, reciprocity between agent and patient, respectively. Similarly, modal judgments are divided into problematic, assertoric, and apodictic. The categories corresponding to these judgments are possibility, impossibility, existence, non-existence, necessity, and contingency. So these categories are not derived from experience, but contributions of understanding. They are forms of synthesis. It is to be noted that these categories are contributions of understanding, which is a faculty of theoretic reasoning. The faculty of reason, which is a technical term in Kant, produces ideas of the unconditioned, such as soul, God, and the world. Reason, in its practical aspect or in morals, produces the principles of morality, which are categorical, not hypothetical. These principles are called categorical imperative. Kant has formulated them in the following 5 ways. Act only on that maxim through which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Universalizability. Act as if the maxim of your action were to become through your will a universal law of nature. So act as to use humanity both in your person and in the person of every other, always at the same time as an end, never simply as a means. So we have to use human beings not simply as a means, but as an end in itself. Any human being should be treated as an end in itself. So act that your will can regard itself at the same time as making universal law through its maxim. You are the maker of this law. It is the expression of your reason. So act as if you were always, through your maxims, a lawmaking member in a universal kingdom of ends. Regarding the relation between theoretical and practical reason, opinions have been divided. Some claim that the latter means practical reason is derivable from the theoretical reason. Others claim that the theoretical is derivable from the practical. But in conscient philosophy, they are manifestations of or the functions of the same reason. So, what reason is, we have covered up to Kant, and in Hegel, rational is real. If X is rational, then X is real. If X is real, then X is rational. Now, because of time constraint, I am making these comments. From the above definitions of reason, it follows that the function of reason is to correlate an end with a means, sometimes with the best available means, to apprehend certain categories, generic universals, principles, ends or goals, to apply the principles to a particular case, or to be guided by these principles or goals or aims. It seems to me that these concepts of rationality cannot be used to differentiate human beings from certain higher animals. This is my comment. In other words, they cannot be used to draw the distinction between human beings and higher animals. Higher animals such as chimpanzee can correlate certain means with certain ends. I have seen some program of chimpanzees or higher animals. They are also guided by certain goals or aims. They can also apprehend certain categories such as existence, non-existence, plurality, causality. Hence, rationality, theoretical or practical, is not adequate, I am claiming, not adequate to draw the qualitative distinction between humankind and animal kind. You can draw the distinction in quantity, but not in kind. This is my reflection on the view of Western philosophers who have used reason as the defining property of human beings. Then second section, I am dealing with the views of pro-abortionists. There was a long debate between supporters of abortionists and those who have opposed abortion. X is a human being if and only if X is formed by certain experiences, such as loving, caring, learning. Pro-abortionists claim that a fetus or an unborn child is not a human being, as it does not have the experience of loving, caring, etc. Hence, the destruction of fetus or the termination of pregnancy does not amount to murder or killing a human being. This definition also is not adequate to draw the distinction between human beings and other higher animals, such as chimpanzees. This is due to the fact that we cannot substantiate the thesis that higher animals do not have experiences such as loving, caring, and learning. So, we cannot say that human beings alone can communicate with others, or human being possess a concept of self as continuing subject of experiences. Since higher animals can also communicate with others, have expectations or continuity of experiences, and recognize objects and creatures, the above criteria cannot be used to distinguish human beings from higher animals. Even if we accept the view of the pro-abortionists. Third section deals with the views of theologians. I have found here three different views. One, the X is a human being if and only if X is created by God after his image. In this context, it is to be noted that God created human beings after his image, but not animals. And Swami Vivekananda once pointed out that what sort of God it is who discriminates. And he made another comment also, the God of Christianity. So, since God has created human beings after his image, they are born with the idea of perfection or perfect beings. Other beings are created by God, but not after his image. So, one conception of God we come across in Christianity. Then Hasidic concept of human being, which has its origin in Kabbalistic concepts, emphasizes the origin of the soul, creation, and participation in the divine realm. This is the Jewish concept of human being. X is a human being if and only if the soul of X has its origin in the divine. X is formed after the model of the supernal elements, and X has influence in the divine realm. This view emphasizes reciprocal relation between human beings and God. To quote Teshima, God gives man life, blessings, and judgment. Man, in his turn, restores the cosmic order through his devotion, eventually strengthening the upper world. Then third type of definition we come across in Orthodox Christianity. X is a human being if and only if X is ensouled. According to Orthodox Christianity, a fetus gains a soul at the moment of quickening, and the mother feels its movement. When the mother feels the movement, that is called quickening. And then God infuses the fetus with soul. So according to this view, ensoulment distinguishes human beings from other beings. But the views of theologians lack empirical or rational justification. This is my comment. It depends on a lot of assumptions which are difficult to accept or substantiate. Hence, these views are either dogmas, blind faith, articles of faith, or myths. So I'm claiming that we cannot distinguish human beings in terms of ensoulment. Fourth one is very complex, the view of the existentialist philosophers. Existentialism is a reaction to rationality. And there are so many views in existentialism. Some of the famous existentialist philosophers are Kierkegaard, Heidegger, Ortega, Sartre, and many others. Regarding existentialism, there are a wide variety of existentialist philosophers, and some of them claim that it goes back to Kierkegaard, but I think it goes back to Shakespeare or even earlier. Shakespeare, you remember, said, to quote, "Life is a tale told by an idiot, full of fury and sound, signifying nothing." So, existentialist philosophers emphasize nothing also. And Kierkegaard emphasizes deep emotions. So, we can define one concept from Kierkegaard, that X is a human being if and only if X is an emotional being. In this context, the expression emotions refer to some turbulent states of mind, such as anxiety, dread, alienation, forlornness, abandonment. It is to be noted that the traditional concept of human beings emphasizes the cognitive or the rational aspect, but the existentialist philosophers focus on the emotional or non-cognitive aspect of human beings. So it is a reaction to the Enlightenment. Enlightenment claims that reason can solve not only the problems of science, but also the problems of human beings. To quote, "Reason in the form of scientific method was viewed as the magic wand by means of which ignorance, injustice, prejudice, and superstition were to be eliminated." But existentialist philosophers such as Kierkegaard claim that reason cannot solve central problems of life. The self is to be understood not in terms of rationality or thought, but in terms of possibilities, dread, or anxiety, and the decisions that follows them. Similarly, truth is not revealed by reason. Truth depends on our choices and decisions. To quote Kierkegaard, he claims that animals have fear, but not anxiety. He says one does not therefore find dread in the beast, precisely for the reason that the nature of the beast is not qualified by spirit. Anxiety has no object, but fear has an object. Hence, it is claimed that nothingness is the content of anxiety. So, nothingness, they emphasize nothingness, is the content of anxiety. Anxiety has no object, but fear has an object. And he claims also that animals have fear but not anxiety. And regarding dread, he says, dread is the dizziness of freedom. But according to Heidegger, the object of anxiety is not anything particular. It is also claimed that since the object is not any specific thing, it is everything in general. And this everything is the world. For this reason, a human being asks, why am I here? Why am I being abandoned in this world? Regarding anxiety, Heidegger says, anxiety reveals in human beings the being of the possibility of being one's own. That means being free for the freedom of choosing and defining oneself. He also claims that it is anxiety that individuates, pulls us back from the world of everything living, where we are part of what one does, what one says, and what one thinks. Hence, there is difference between Heidegger and Kierkegaard regarding anxiety. What is its object? Now, in Heidegger, I came across two concepts of human being, although they are not incompatible. So, one concept is X is a human being if and only if the essence of X lies in its existence. So, essence does not precede existence. Existence precedes essence. We come across this type of characterization in Heidegger. It is claimed that essence of a human being, he calls it Dasein, lies in its to be. Hence, its essence must be conceived in terms of its existence. The so-called properties of human being are to be conceived as possible ways for it to be. Hence, there is no Platonic essence anywhere. Since each mode of being of an individual is its essence, each of them would be particular. Hence, neither Platonic essence nor the universals are to be postulated for the explanation of the nature of human being. So he emphasizes the existence, not the essence. Then another concept of human being we have in Heidegger. X is a human being if and only if the being of X is ahead of oneself, always on the way, unterwegs. We come across this type of characterization also in the philosophy of Heidegger. In order to understand his use of the word Dasein, we refer to a human being, which refers to a human being, we have to understand his use of the word Sorge, translated as care. To quote Heidegger, the primary factor of care being ahead of itself, however, means that Dasein always exists for the sake of itself. There is always something outstanding in Dasein which has not yet become real, although it remains as a possibility of its being. A constant, unfinished quality thus lies in the essence of the constitution of Dasein. That means human beings are unfinished product. In other words, we cannot give an account of human being without reference to his projects, hopes, aspirations, intentions. Hence, a human being is always in the process of becoming. So it emphasizes the becoming aspect of human being and emphasizes his projects, hopes, desires, and so on. So, hence an individual is necessarily unfinished or incomplete. According to Heidegger, we can never grasp the wholeness of Dasein. This is due to the fact that it reaches its wholeness in death. When it happens, Dasein loses its being of the there. Hence, this view emphasizes the becoming aspect of human being. That means hopes and desires are to be included in defining a particular human being. They are all unique. They have different desires, different thoughts, different ideals, different dreams, and so on. Then you come across another conception of human being in the existentialist philosopher Ortega. He is a Spanish existentialist. According to Ortega, human beings do not have nature but history. They live in the realm of planning, hopes, and aspirations, which are constructed throughout their history. Regarding desire, he says, a constant mobilization of our being towards something beyond itself, untiring bowman, shooting without rest on exciting targets. His conception of future is worth mentioning, as we live in the future colored by past and present. It is nice conception of time. We live in future. The existence of human being is what it is going to be, not what it is. Human beings are characterized in terms of future, unlike other beings who are characterized by present. This is due to the fact that we are constantly betting on projects, struggling for their achievement. To quote Ortega, first of all, living is running into the future. It is not present, nor the past what we first live. Life is an activity executed towards, and present and past are only discovered later. In relation to the future, life is making future. Life is what it is not. So, human being is what it is not. That means hopes and desires, unfulfilled hopes and desires are the defining properties of human being. Now, due to shortage of time, I am focusing on Sartre because I have not yet started the views of Indian philosophers. According to Sartre, X is a human being if and only if X is constituted of a set of free choices or decisions. In other words, X is formed out of choices, free choices. His conception of freedom is totally different. According to this view, one individual can be distinguished from another in terms of sets of choices and the circumstances in which those choices are made. Since a set of decisions is the defining property of an individual, he or she does not have any essence prior to his or her existence. So it is the decisions which is not influenced by anybody. And he illustrates in terms of a situation we have confronted with in the Second World War. An example of a situation for the exercise of freedom, of free choice, Sartre mentions the condition of a young man who cannot decide whether to join the French liberation forces or to serve his ailing mother. Sartre claims that there is no pre-existing guideline or moral rules for making a choice in this situation. He has to choose. This is what is meant by the word abandonment. You are abandoned in this world. So you have to choose. To quote Sartre, we are left alone without excuse. That is what I mean when I say that man is condemned to be free. As regards the nature of choice or exercise of freedom, Sartre has rejected the traditional cause, intention, act, end model or motive, act, end model. He claims that the motive is to be understood in terms of an end, which is non-existent. To quote Sartre, the motive is understood only by the end, that is, by the non-existent. It is therefore in itself a negatite. If I accept a niggardly salary, it is doubtless because of fear. And fear is a motive, but it is fear of dying from starvation. That is, this fear has meaning only outside itself in an end ideally posited, which is the preservation of life, which I apprehend as in danger. So Sartre also claims that a motive is not the cause of an act, as motive, act, and end constitute a single upsurge. This conception of upsurge is very important. The motive, the act, and the end are all constituted in a single upsurge. Each of these structures claims the other two as its meaning. But the organized totality is of the three is no longer explained by any particular structure. It is the act which decides its ends and its motive, and the act is the expression of freedom. It is called upsurge. Now, I am claiming from the above discussion, it follows that Sartre defines human beings in terms of choices, which are not caused by any antecedent motives or desires. It is doubtful whether the causal model can be rejected for the explanation of human freedom. This is what I am claiming also. Moreover, it is difficult to distinguish human beings from other animals in terms of certain emotions, which are precursors of the exercise of free choices. A chimpanzee also experiences anxiety or dread. Kierkegaard claimed that animals do not have dread or anxiety, they have fear. A chimpanzee also experiences anxiety or dread in the absence of her child or partner. She also experiences grief or abandonment if there is mishap. Hence, the feeling of higher animals are similar to ours. We cannot say they do not have that type of feeling, although there may be difference in degree. This I would like to claim. This they also make choices similar to ours. Similarly, they have also hopes and desires. They are also in the process of becoming. Hence, the above characterizations of existentialist philosophers are not adequate to distinguish human beings from higher animals, although they have rightly emphasized the emotional or the free choice aspect of human beings. So, I have made a bit of comment on existentialism. So, this is, as I see, is the entire Western conception of human beings. Now I am moving to Indian concept. Indian philosophers do not define human beings in terms of reason or certain attitudes, such as caring, or in terms of certain emotions, such as anxiety. This is due to the fact that these properties are present in higher animals to some extent. According to Indian philosophers, human beings exhibit not only rationality at the level of thought or anxiety at the level of emotions, but also certain other characteristics which will distinguish them from other higher animals. The form of life I am explaining, trying to capture the form of life of the human beings, can be described by the following features. To use the word form of human beings following Wittgenstein, especially later Wittgenstein. Some of their actions are guided by the concept of ought or ought not. We may be mistaken regarding the concept of ought, but every human being, my feeling is, has some sort of concept of ought or ought not. In other words, human beings are guided by the concept of dharma or adharma. The word dharma has been used in a very wide sense by Indian philosophers. The core meaning of the word dharma is derived from the root dhri, meaning to hold or to support, and hence X is a dharma, means that X supports the world, dharati lokan, or X supports the human society as well as the world, yo lokan dharayati yena manava samajo drita swadharma. I am not saying that they know this one, what dharma is, but they are guided by the concept of ought not, even if they are mistaken. This concept is not something derived from experience. The so there are so many meanings of the word dharma in Indian philosophy. Another concept of dharma is that it is something which is real, something which leads you to peace and bliss. So there is a craving for peace and bliss in human beings. From these uses of the word dharma, it follows that our total well-being is dependent on dharma. The law of dharma are as real as the laws of nature. Hence, any type of violence, which is a type of adharma, will cause our suffering and would ultimately lead to the elimination of living beings. It is to be noted that yoga system has mentioned 81 types of violence, 3 of them cardinal or non-derivative. So, they are guided by the conception of ought not. Although what ought to be done is not explicitly present in human beings. Now, since we have the conception of ought, the concept of ought presupposes what we can do and what we cannot do. In other words, if I ought to do X, then it follows that I can do X. Again, the latter presupposes freedom. I can do X means I got freedom to do X. I ought to do X, so I can do X. That means I am free to do X. Almost all the systems of Indian philosophy have accepted some concept of freedom or other. It is to be noted that most Indian philosophers are either compatibilist or libertarians, although some of them have gone beyond both categories, like Shakta Adama and Kashmiri philosophers. Compatibilist, that means free will is compatible with causation. Free will does not mean uncaused. That is the meaning of compatibilist. Indian philosophers, by and large, emphasize the ability and the achievement of human beings by their effort. Human effort or freedom has been emphasized from the very dawn of Indian philosophy. Some of the problems of our existence can be solved by our effort. Here I have quoted some passages from scriptures like Maitreyi Upanishad. Samsara is just one's thought. With effort, one should cleanse it. The mind, in truth, is for mankind the means of bondage and release. If bound to objects, freedom, bondage follows. From objects free, that is called release. From this passage, it follows that we can overcome some of the obstacles of our existence by our effort of free will. In the yoga system also, we can overcome our suffering by controlling our senses or internal organs, including various modifications or modes of mind. Through our effort, we can transform our minds, which is necessary for liberation. So, Indian philosophers by and large have emphasized freedom. The practice of yoga to control our internal and external senses is present not only in the Hindu tradition but also in the Buddhist tradition, especially the Yogacara system. According to Lankavatara Sutra, a Buddhist text, also an enlightened mind A pure mind is transformed into the Buddha's mind. To quote, suchness, emptiness, excellence, nirvana, realm of thought, the realm of truth, the various bodies made from mind, I call these Buddha. In the Mahabharata also, human effort plays a great role as there is no scope for fatalism. There is no scope for fatalism or hard determinism. To quote Mahabharata, what is called fate, daiva, is nothing but the karmic residue of one's effort. To quote, just as a field sown without seed is barren, so without human effort there is no fate. The doer enjoys himself the fruit of his or actions. This is seen clearly in the world in regard to activity and inactivity. They have emphasized freedom so much that all the systems have emphasized this freedom. The Yoga Vasishtha, which assumed the status of proto-AP, contains philosophical thoughts of Vedanta, Yoga, Sankhya, Shaiva Siddhanta, and Mahayana Buddhism, lays much emphasis on human effort than anything else. It is claimed that our actions determine our future, as there is no fate. To quote a few passages from Yoga Vasishtha, by human exertion, Brihaspati became teacher of gods. A person is born in this world, grows up, and ages. There is no fate seen here. Merely progression from childhood to old age. By pure activity, creativity, pure results are gained quickly. Impure always follows impure. That which is called fate does not exist. So according to Yoga Vasishtha, liberation or freedom can be achieved in the bodily form, and there is no difference between the embodied and these disembodied types of liberation. As regards the nature of a liberated person, it is said in the Yoga Vasishtha, although externally engaged in worldly actions, he or she has no attachment in his or her mind to any object whatsoever. He or she behaves like an ideal citizen and friend of all. He or she is free from the restrictions of caste, creed, stage of life, custom, and scriptures. It is also claimed that activities of a liberated person are free from personal desires. This type of person spreads happiness around. To quote, having seen him or her, having heard about him or her, having remembered him or her, all creatures feel delighted. From the above discussion, it follows that Indian philosophers by and large have emphasized free will or effort for achieving our desired ends, including metaphysical freedom or liberation. Hence, fatalism has no role to play in the context of Indian philosophy. Then the third aspect of human being, or third form of life or dimension of human being is this. Human beings are guided by the concept of infinity. Somehow we get the concept of infinity. This happens both in morality and knowledge. There is an inherent craving for the unknown and a search for the knowable. We ask question whether there are any unknown or unknowable objects. Some systems even claim that whatever exists is knowable. It is the Naya system. No matter how much I know, I can say I could have known more. Similarly, no matter how much righteous activities I perform, I can say I could have performed more. Hence, the form of life of human being exhibits participation in infinity both at the level of knowledge and morality. Since we participate in infinity, or there is a craving for infinite knowledge, love, and compassion, it is said that we are potentially infinite. Vivekananda used to say that we are potentially infinite. What it means that we have a craving for more and more. Several scriptures have also mentioned that we are infinite knowledge and bliss, especially in Vedanta. Now the question is, how can a finite being be infinite in certain aspects? When it is said that we are potentially infinite or infinite bliss or knowledge, what is meant is, this is my meaning following my gurus, that we cannot draw any limit to our knowledge, practice of dharma, compassion, or love. We cannot draw any limit. This is the meaning of infinite. Regarding the origin of the concept of infinity, it may be said that it is derived from our knowledge of arithmetic or the number series, as number series has no end. Moreover, since we know what a finite object or being is, we also know, at least implicitly, its correlate, which is infinite. From our conception of time also, we derive the concept of infinity, as time series has no beginning. So, this is a reflection on how do you get the concept of infinity. Regarding the now, another dimension or the form of life of human being is creativity or suggestive meaning. This is exhibited in our language or understanding of language, art, music, literature. At the level of literature or art, suggestive meaning has been introduced in addition to conventional or metaphorical meaning. It is claimed that those who understand only the literal meaning do not realize the significance of speech. It is said in the Vedas that the person who understands only the literal meaning is the person who sees but does not see, or hears but does not hear. I am grateful to our young scholar for Vedic chanting, as I can correlate Vedas with my suggestive meaning. It is claimed here as I mentioned in the Vedas, that those who hear but does not hear. You have to get the inner meaning of our literature and creativity also. Let us consider the sentence. The village is on the Ganges. Gangayam Ghosha. The literal meaning of the word Ganga is the river Ganges. Hence, the literal meaning of the sentence is the village is on the river Ganges. Since the literal meaning gives rise to inconsistency, as the village cannot be on the river, we take resort to metaphorical meaning and interpret the sentence as the village is on the bank of the river Ganges. But the suggestive meaning, this is how I am drawing the distinction between literal meaning, metaphorical meaning, and suggestive meaning. But the suggestive meaning goes beyond the metaphorical meaning in several directions. There is no rule for the suggestive meaning as we have for metaphorical meaning. Moreover, it presupposes creativity on the part of the subject. For this reason, one may attribute holiness to the village. One says, Gangayam Gosha. Holiness, another purity, still another may consider it to be a suitable place for making a journey. Similar is the case with the sentence, sun has set. Hence, a person may interpret this sentence as now the time is to go home. Another may interpret it is the time to worship. Still another as it is time to meet my beloved, and so on. So suggestive meaning is to be distinguished from literal meaning as well as from metaphorical meaning. And human beings have this suggestive meaning. Hence, we cannot put any limit to the suggestive meaning of an expression. The creativity of human beings gives us a clue to our life, which is not purely mundane or governed by a fixed set of rules. Now, the fifth dimension of our life is realization of certain rasas. Rasa cannot be identified with our usual emotions, although it presupposes our ordinary emotions for its manifestation or realization. According to some literary critics, there are 10 permanent emotions. Sthai Bhava, and 33 variant emotions. Vyabhichari Bhava. The permanent or the abiding emotions are Rati, love, Hasya, mirth or laughter, Shoka, grief, Krodha, anger, Utsaho, inspiration, Bhaya, fear, Jugupsa, disgust, Vishaya, wonder, Samo, a state of tranquility, a spirit of renunciation, and Bhakti, spirit of devotion. The last two are very important for distinguishing human beings from others. They are latent in human beings and are manifested under certain conditions, such as association with noble or saintly persons, study of scriptures, spiritual discourse, or association with holy places. There are as I pointed out, several variant emotions. Now, because of shortage of time, I am not enumerating all the variant emotions. It is to be noted that permanent emotions are abiding impressions of our mind and produce rasa, a type of realization. Rasa is a kind of super mundane lokottara experience, although it has its origin in certain intense emotions. Hence, it cannot be identified with an emotion even if it is caused by it. Rasa is enjoyed by the sympathetic readers of literature or spectators of drama or performances. The process which leads to the realization of rasa is called sadharanikriti, universalization or impersonalization. By this process, a mundane emotion is transformed into a supermundane, blissful experience or rasa. Hence, emotions such as grief, anxiety, dread are transformed into a universal experience. Thus, Laukika or mundane state of mind becomes Lokottara, supermundane. The individual self is dissolved into a universal self. Vishwanatha, a literary critic, describes the states of the realization of rasas in the following way. These states belong to me and do not belong to me. They also belong to others and do not belong to others. There is no distinction between you and me in the realization of these rasas. Parasya na parasyeti, mometi no mometi cho, tad asade vibhavade purichedo no vidyate. Hence, at this level, we rise above the difference between I and thou, between you and me, as we participate in universal state of mind. Some philosophers have recognized the following rasas: Sringara, love; Vira, courage; Hasya, mirth; Rudra, fury; Karuna, compassion; Vivatsa, disgust; Bhayanak, fearful; Ascharya, wonder; Shanta, tranquility; and Bhakti, devotion. It is also claimed that Bhakti Rasa is intrinsically super mundane, as it is a state of the realization of divinity in us. It is enjoyed by anyone at any stage of one's life. Hence, the realization of rasas, especially Bhakti Rasa, is another spiritual dimension of human beings. The last one, human beings can realize metaphysical freedom or liberation or moksha or nirvana in varying degrees. Systems of Indian philosophy have interpreted the term moksha or nirvana in different ways. The connotations may be classified as positive or negative. Negatively, it is a state of mind free from sorrows, sufferings, cravings, selfishness, or defilements. The word nirvana consists of the word ni plus vana or nir plus vana. The negative particle ni signifies absence or cessation, and the word vana signifies weaving. or craving. Hence, the word nirvana means cessation or extinction of all types of craving, including physical, vocal, imaginary, or dispositional. If there is no craving, then there is no transgression of ethical conduct. Therefore, the state of nirvana does not imply the extinction of the individual or the person, but only the cessation of one's craving or desires which are due to attachment, aversion, or delusion. It implies the extinction of the life of illusion, passion, and craving. Positively, moksha or nirvana is a kind of blissful experience. The Advaita Vedanta characterizes it as realization of truth, knowledge, and bliss. Dhammapada, a Buddhist text, also emphasizes its blissful nature. To quote, health is the highest gain, contentment is the greatest wealth, trustful are the best kinsmen, nibbana is the highest bliss. The life is also characterized by enlightenment, as there is wisdom or higher knowledge. Hence, the mind of a liberated person is characterized by peace, bliss, compassionate feelings, or love for all beings or the entire creation. Even if these are ideals, human beings can realize these ideals in varying degrees in this life, here and now, to quote Swami Vivekananda. Hence, I have characterized the form of life of human beings in terms of 6 characteristics, which are some of them are interrelated also. And I am claiming that human beings exhibit certain characteristics, or some of the human beings we have come across with these characteristics, and this form of life is missing among animals. Although human beings have rationality, animals have also rationality, human beings have anxiety, although animals to some extent have anxiety. This is how I would like to differentiate the outlook or the perspective of Indian philosophers from the perspective of Western philosophers. With this note, I would like to convey my heartfelt thanks to all of you, including our audience, who are the gods and goddesses of this temple. And Modak Academy is a temple where we do worship, we learn, and which gives us guiding principles. So I adore you, I adore all the participants as well as organizers, Modak, Gargi, as well as the organizer Rituparna, and our youngest disciple, the Vedic chanter, Priti
Really.
Lee. That's right.
Thank you, sir. I feel it's not a deliberation or talk. It's your tireless journey each and every nook and corner of philosophy that Western and Indian you have highlighted so insightful and just to enlighten us in this way. So I will just we can take 2-3 questions who are present here. If they have any more questions, so they can ask, sir. Any more question from any of our scholar and participants? Deepika Di?
Okay, I am educated by the enlightening lecture of Jaishankar ji. I thank him very much. We have now some ideas of the different aspects of Western philosophy of existentialism, the different aspects of Indian aspect of very many things, yoga, moksha, everything. So I was a student of political science. All these things were somehow known some ways, but not in a totality. I thank him very much for delivering such a wonderful lecture. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And also I thank Mr. Modak and his Bahini, his band of people who have arranged this lecture. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Modak.
There is one announcement. I'll be visiting Calcutta in January, and the Ramakrishna Mission has organized a workshop in January from the 15th of January to 22nd of January on the following topic: the relevance of Indian philosophy to contemporary Western philosophy. I'll be grateful if you send some of your students, especially scholars or PhD scholars, to this workshop. It is open to all, and you can register with the Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture, Gold Park, Calcutta. I will be grateful to all of you. And I look forward to meeting you. I will spend nearly 4 weeks in Calcutta at the mission, so I will be available for discussion also.
Mr.
Okay.
Modak, you want to? Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. It is a wonderful presentation, really. And thank you very much. In the morning session, all the participants, you all manage the time and attend the program. That's why thank you very much, each and everyone. And today's anchor also, Dr. Gargide. And finally, again, sir, thank you very much and thanks a lot. And I will try to meet you when you will come to India. So I'm eagerly waiting for that. So we just complete today's session because it's enough time.
Heartiest gratitude to Professor Shaw and all of our audience. Thank you.
I also feel my gratitude to Professor Shaw for reminding me and presenting a brilliant lecture here. After a good length of time, I happened to listen to him. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you again.
I am talking from Bangalore. Sir,
I'm wishing
thank you for
happy
your
Diwali as well.
valuable advice and valuable message. And we are waiting January when you will reach back India. That time we will meet you and want your valuable advice. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we are
Thank
going
you,
to
sir.
end the program. Any more comment? Okay, thank you and bye everybody. Wish you all a happy Diwali. Just enjoy the day. Bye. Namaskar.
Namaskar.